Disclaimer: the following program is designed to offend, provoke, and challenge your religious sensibilities. It contains content that will likely offend anyone who holds religion sacred. This is for those with thick skin or a taste for the harsh truth. If you're easily offended or cherish your religious views, please turn off now. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. You have been warned. This is going to be a little bit of a different Trolliverse. Usually we pick apart the ridiculousness of a chapter, but today we're doing something else, just showing you how straight up stolen this entire thing is. Because chapter 8 of 1st Nephi, it's not original at all. It's not revelation, it's not divine, it's just Joseph Smith copy-pasting his dad's dream and passing it off as scripture. And we're going to prove it. All right, so here's how we're doing this. We're going to show the original dream of Joseph Smith Sr., recorded years before the Book of Mormon was written, and then we're going to show you how 1st Nephi 8 is basically the exact same thing. And I do mean the exact same thing. Reference to the dream is down in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. All right, first up, Joseph Smith Sr.'s dream. I was traveling in an open, desolate field, which appeared to be very barren. Then we look at 1st Nephi 8, 4 through 7. Methought I saw in my dream a dark and dreary wilderness, and as I followed him, I beheld myself that I was in a dark and dreary waste. Both stories start exactly the same. The dreamer finds himself in a barren, lifeless wasteland, because that's not suspicious at all, right? The themes are identical. Both dreamers are placed in an empty, forsaken setting, setting the stage for a spiritual journey. The phrase dark and dreary in Nephi's version just adds extra drama, but the core narrative device remains the same. This is blatantly similar, just reworded. This isn't a direct copy-paste, but the setup is unmistakably the same. Start with a barren world, isolate the dreamer, and set up a spiritual journey. Joseph Smith Jr. didn't copy it word for word. He tweaked it just enough to make it seem different. But if this was truly an original revelation, why does it match a dream his dad had years before? But wait, it gets so much better as we go along into Joseph Smith Sr.'s dream. All right, let's look at the next part. In the dream, it says, my guide, who was by my side as before, said, this is the desolate world, but travel on. In Lehi's vision, 1st Nephi 8, 5, and 6, I saw a man, and he was dressed in a white robe, and he came and stood before me. And it came to pass that he spake unto me, and bade me follow him. All right, let's compare here. Both stories introduce a guide who appears without explanation. In Joseph Sr.'s dream, the guide doesn't describe himself, but is already familiar as before. In Lehi's vision, the guide is a man in a white robe who appears and commands him to follow. Both guides direct the dreamer forward without giving detail. So again, while the descriptions differ slightly, both figures serve the same function. They're mysterious, unquestioned guides leading the dreamer into an unknown space. The setup is the same: a wandering dreamer, a sudden guide, and an unexplained command to continue. This isn't a word-for-word copy, but the narrative structure is almost identical. The concept remains the same. The dreamer is lost, a guide appears, and he must follow without question. And you're probably saying, Troll, these are similar, but they aren't exact. Okay, fair enough. Let's continue. All right, the tree with pure white fruit. In Joseph Sr.'s dream, it says, beyond me was a low but very pleasant valley in which stood a tree, such as I had never seen before. It bore a kind of fruit in shape much like a chestnut burr and as white as snow, or if possible, whiter. In 1st Nephi 8, verses 10 through 11, I beheld a tree whose fruit was desirable to make one happy. The fruit thereof was white to exceed all the whiteness that I had ever seen. All right, so we have a never before seen tree that appears out of nowhere. The fruit is pure white. Joseph Smith describes it as white as snow, or whiter, and Lehi says it exceeds all whiteness. The tree and fruit are treated as incredibly special, bringing joy and fulfillment to those who partake. Same core idea, again, slightly rewarded. Joseph Smith Jr. doesn't copy-paste his father's exact words. He just simplifies the description. Joseph Sr. gets detailed with chestnut burr fruit in a low valley, while Lehi's version is more direct. A tree, fruit, it's super white, and it makes you happy. Both visions revolve around a glowing white tree that gives overwhelming joy. What are the odds that two different people in the same family just happen to receive nearly identical divine visions? Joseph Smith Jr. didn't invent this revelation. He repurposed a family dream and slapped a "Thus saith the Lord" on it. All right. The fruit that fills them with great joy. Joseph Smith's dream, it says, I drew near and began to eat of it, and I found it delicious beyond description. We were exceedingly happy, insomuch that our joy could not easily be expressed. In Lehi's vision, in 1 Nephi 8, verse 12, says, As I partook of the fruit thereof, it filled my soul with exceedingly great joy. All right, so in both versions, eating the fruit brings extreme happiness. The joy is indescribable. Joseph Smith says it could not easily be expressed, while Lehi's version uses the classic exceedingly great joy line. Both dreamers immediately want their families to eat it too. So, same event, just streamlined. Joseph Smith Jr. doesn't copy his father's exact words, but he boils it down to the same key points. The fruit is life-changing. The happiness is overwhelming. The dreamer instantly wants to share it. At some point, you have to ask, how many times can the same family have the exact same divine vision before it stops being a coincidence? All right. Calling family to partake of the fruit in Joseph Sr.'s dream, I said in my heart, I cannot eat this alone. I must bring my wife and children that they may partake with me. Accordingly, I went and brought my family, which consisted of a wife and 7 children, and we all commenced eating. In Lehi's vision, 1 Nephi 8, verse 12 and 14 through 16, it says, Wherefore I began to be desirous that my family should partake of it also. I beheld your mother, Sariah, and Sam, and Nephi, and it came to pass that they did come unto me and partake of the fruit also. All right, so let's compare again. Both dreamers eat the fruit first. Both immediately think, I must bring my family. Both call their families, and the family eats too. Step for step, copying, eat the fruit, realize this is too good not to share, summon the family to eat, family eats. Same motivation, same action, same result. This isn't just similar, it's an exact match in structure and sequence. At this point, calling it divinely inspired feels like a stretch. Calling it heavily borrowed seems a lot more accurate. All right, next in Joseph Sr.'s dream, it says, I beheld a beautiful stream of water which ran from the east to the west. In Lehi's vision, 1 Nephi 8 verse 13 reads, I beheld a river of water, and it ran along, and it was near the tree. So comparison. Both dreams feature a river. Both dreamers notice the river after encountering the tree. Both rivers are a significant visual in the dream. So what's the problem? Well, Joseph Sr.'s dream never says the river is beside the tree. Lehi's version conveniently places the river right next to the tree, tightening the structure of the vision. What's the purpose of the river in either dream? Neither really explains it. The bigger issue is that Joseph Jr.'s dream had a tree and a river, but never connected them. Why does Joseph Jr.'s version make that specific adjustment? Is it merely a coincidence, despite all the other identical elements? A divine parallel that somehow shows up when Joseph Jr. retells the story? Or just a slight rewrite to make the copy-pasting a little less obvious? At this point, calling this divine revelation is a serious stretch. Calling it a family story reworked into scripture, that makes a lot more sense. All right, next up, the rod/rope leading to the tree. In Joseph Sr.'s dream, he writes, I could see a rope running along the bank of it, about as high as a man could reach. In Lehi's vision first, Nephi 8, verses 19 through 20, it says, I beheld a rod of iron, and it extended along the bank of the river, and I also beheld a straight and narrow path, which came along by the rod of iron. Both dreams feature a path leading to the tree. Both dreams have a guiding object that runs along the riverbank. Joseph Sr.'s dream calls it a rope, while Lehi's vision upgrades it to an iron rod. Rope? Rod. Same purpose, same placement. Why the sudden change from rope to iron rod? Did Joseph Jr. think rod of iron sounded more biblical? It appears in Psalms and Revelation. Did he tweak the details just enough to claim this as original revelation? Or did he swap rope out to avoid uncomfortable associations? In the 1800s, rope was often linked to brutal punishments and racial violence. Whatever the reason, the function didn't change, just the wording. Joseph Jr. had to make adjustments to keep up the illusion. All right, this is one of the most damning pieces of evidence in this next one. The great and spacious building, Joseph Sr.'s dream. I beheld a spacious building standing opposite the valley. It was full of doors and windows, and they were all filled with people who were very finely dressed. In Lehi's vision, 1 Nephi 8, 26 and 27, it says, I beheld on the other side of the river a great and spacious building. It was filled with people, both old and young, both male and female, and their manner of dress was exceedingly fine. Both dreams describe an enormous towering building. Both are filled with crowds of well-dressed people. Both buildings are positioned opposite the tree and river. Mysterious, ominous, floating skyscrapers packed with fancy people who sneer at the dreamer. Check. So if this was divine revelation, why is it identical to Joseph Sr.'s dream? Why do the same characters appear in both versions? The believers versus the mockers. Why does this vision conveniently serve the same moral lesson in both stories? Because it's not a revelation. It's Joseph Smith Jr. recycling his dad's dream and shoving it into the Book of Mormon. All right, last one I'll do and then I'll quit because this video is getting too long. Plus, we're about to get storms here, so fair warning, there might not be a video tomorrow. All right. Last one, the mocking people in the building, Joseph Smith's dream. When these people observed us in the low valley under the tree, they pointed the finger of scorn at us and treated us with all manner of disrespect and contempt. In Lehi's vision, 1 Nephi 8, 27 and 33 through 34, it says, they were in the attitude of mocking and pointing their fingers towards those who had come, and they did point the finger of scorn at me and those that were partaking of the fruit. So again, here, both feature a group of well-dressed people inside the building. Both emphasize finger-pointing and mockery as the key behavior. Both use the same setup, believers at the tree, vs. scorners in the building, a crowd of arrogant, finger-pointing elitists looking down on the righteous. Same concept, same execution. How many coincidences does it take before it's just plagiarism? Joseph Smith Jr. didn't translate ancient scripture. He copied his dad's dream and passed it off as divine revelation. The structure, details, and wording are nearly identical. If this was divine revelation, then Joseph Smith Sr. was the true prophet, because he had the dream first. The so-called vision of Lehi isn't prophecy, it's a family bedtime story recycled into scripture. If this was truly divine, then why did it already exist in the Smith household before the Book of Mormon was ever written? This isn't faith. This isn't divine inspiration. This is Joseph Smith Jr. taking his dad's dream and slapping it directly into the Book of Mormon and calling it divine revelation. And that's the Book of Mormon, folks.